Hello and welcome to the next episode of Let's Talk Brand, the first in Poland series of video interviews with world-class branding experts. It's always an honor and privilege to interview inspiring branding experts from different countries and different backgrounds. Today I'm excited to interview Howie Chan, the Healthy Brand Strategist. Howie is a brand strategist with over 20 years of experience building brands in healthcare for startups and Fortune 500 companies. Prior to founding Healthy Brand Consulting, he was managing director of brand strategy at Real Chemistry, one of the largest independent healthcare agencies in the world. Hope you will enjoy listening to my conversation with Howie Chan. Hi, Howie.
Hey, Lukasz, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
I'm good.
Howie, thank you for this interview. Actually, before we start, even I like to start with some very questions about Poland, because I always wonder: have you ever, or the expert I interview, been to Poland, or have you worked for a company based in Poland? I always like to check. What do you know about Poland, or if there's any connection? Because sometimes it turns out that the interview expert worked in Poland or has Polish roots, and sometimes there's something surprising for me.
Unfortunately, I do not have Polish roots, but when I was living in Europe, I spent about 3 years in Europe. I did visit Poland. I visited Warsaw, and I must admit it was a really nice experience. Going through museums, the history, and just going around, walking around, going to milk bars. Like it was fun. It was really cool, actually. I had a
But
great
you were a
time.
tourist, just as a tourist.
I was just a tourist.
Okay. 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 I'm living on the north coast of Poland, in Gdańsk. I don't know if you've been to Gdańsk. It's on the seaside. Okay, so maybe next time.
Maybe
in
next
Poland
time.
we will come to the seacoast.
That
Okay,
sounds-
so one of the ideas behind this podcast is the presentation of best experts or most inspiring experts, so that the Polish entrepreneurs, marketers, and students know where to look for inspiration. So I would like to start with you and ask you, what is your professional background, and when actually you have decided, and why you've decided to shift from sales scientist. And it was really surprising, this kind of shift from sales scientist to a brand strategist.
Yes, I was working in the technical area. So I was in healthcare. I was in the technical field. I was trained as a scientist. And after a few years, I realized it's really not what I want to do. I could do it, but I would never be the one to invent the new cure for cancer or whatever it might be. And so what I did was I followed my curiosity. And at that point in time, I worked for a medical device company, and I was just curious about how these devices help patients. How did it work? What actually happens in hospitals? So I transitioned to a job where I worked in the hospitals with clinicians, with the salespeople too. But my job was really a technical expert. So utilizing my technical background. So from there, I was able to look at how sales teams worked, how clinical trials were run, how patients and physicians use these products that we were trying to market all the time. So that gave me a very interesting perspective with that, which then I took back in-house to the company to work as a product marketer. And from there, sort of everything sort of opened up. It was only about, I would say about a decade ago, where when I joined an agency where I got sucked into the world of brand. So I work with the managing partner at the time. And the first assignment, we had to rebrand a multi-billion-dollar company. It was sort of my first foray into brand, but I was totally hooked. It utilized analytics, science, but also the art and creativity. So all these things I was really interested in, Lukasz, into one thing, and there was brand.
Okay, when was it? How old were you at the time of branding this billion-dollar company?
So that was about a decade ago, about 10 years ago, 20,
Okay.
14 or 15, I would say. It was fun. It was great fun working with a big company, trying to reposition them.
Yeah, as I said, it was quite kind of surprising shift, because most of the time when I speak with experts, the shift is from the designer to brand strategist,
Right.
but not from the scientist to brand strategist. And
Yes.
it was just kind of surprising. And as you mentioned, you worked in companies related to healthcare. You call yourself the Healthy Brand Strategist. You are talking a lot about building healthy brands. And I would like to start with something opposite. When the brand is unhealthy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
When can you say the brand is unhealthy?
Yeah, well, absolutely. So when I look at the world of brand, it's really about internal and external alignment. That's what make a brand healthy. And when you think about that as a metaphor, for a person's health, so like your health and my health, when you're not healthy, it means something is out of alignment, something is wrong, right? So this could be mental health. So let's say what you perceive within internally is different from how others see you, or how you think one thing but you're acting in a different way. Or physical health. So if you are not doing the right things, you're not eating the right foods, you're not taking care of yourself, doing the exercises, and trying to be fit. So all these little things add up to becoming an unhealthy brand. So when you take that, into a company and an organization, it's multiplied, right? So if things are not aligned, if your marketing team has no idea what a sales team is doing, if customer service is doing one thing, but the product teams are doing something else, if your customers perceive you one way and your employees think another way, you start to get unhealthy. And look, you don't wait until you become really sick to work on it. And the same is the same thing with health. You don't wait until you're on a hospital bed to work on your health. You need to attack it and work on it every single day, just like your brand. And that's my philosophy of a healthy brand.
But still, there's a lot of unhealthy brands on the market. So let's imagine a sick brands come to Howie. What do you prescribe in your prescription, let's say? So what is the cure for such as, or what kind of diseases we have, and what is the cure for this kind of pain or disease?
Yeah, I love going down this metaphor because this is my jam, right? So I work in healthcare. So the number one thing is diagnosis. You got to figure out what's wrong. Okay. Just like a person go to a doctor, we got to figure out what's misaligned. What are the issues? So there can be a lot of diseases, like you said, Lukasz. And one of the interesting things is, just like people, organizations can sometimes self-diagnose. So they come to me and they say, "Hey, Howie, we need a new website, a new social channel, a new message matrix." And I would suspend judgment. I would not just, okay, let's go treat it, right? Just like a doctor would. If you go to a doctor and say, "Hey, this is pain, this is painful, this is whatever," you do a set of diagnostics. So you need to understand what is currently the issue. So I ask a series of questions. What's working? What's not working? What's the core of the business? What objectives have you met or failed to meet? What are some of the symptoms, right? Are things aligned? So going through a whole host of questions, Lukasz, we can figure out where or what things need to change. So it can be super drastic. So it can be like, whoa, if you look at your customers today, they're headed in a totally different direction because of technology and trends and whatnot. And you are sort of left in the dust, and your products and services and how you talk about yourselves is no longer relevant. So you need to drastically reposition your brand. I can still remember that first company that we rebranded. Their issue was this: they were a technology company, and their job was to make sure the internet is working for every company. I mean, it's a big thing, right? Making sure everything is up a network. Their primary customers, however, were the IT people in companies. Not that there's anything wrong with IT people, but they're not the CEO of the organizations. Let's say you're selling to a bank. you're selling to the IT department, but they wanted to sell something bigger, something so that, it encompasses the entire company. They wanted to hit the CEO, but everything that they were saying, everything that they were doing will focus on the IT people. So they had to drastically reposition the entire company, their story, everything, so that they become more of a corporate enterprise company. And that was their disease, and we had to go through a process to fix them.
Okay, so sometimes it's a quite a long process, or some. Okay, so there's no just a pill.
There's no silver bullet, right? There is never a silver bullet. There's never one thing, and everything gets fixed.
And once you are healthy, then you have to stay healthy. So it's another challenge.
There's another challenge. There's another challenge.
How to stay.
Absolutely. So processes, systems, organizational structure, all these things help to maintain the brand and the brand story. You're so right. You can have the best process in the world to create the brand strategy, the creative platform, everything you need to kind of launch the brand. But if you don't have the systems and processes in place to continue their journey, continue to monitor and shift and react, you're going to end up in a situation like Toys R Us, like Kmart, like Blockbuster, these brands that just disappeared because they didn't have a way to adjust and adapt to what's actually happening in the landscape.
You've mentioned brand strategy. I wonder, because I think that sometimes there's too many theories, concepts, or definitions, because every expert has his own definition. What's your definition of brand? What's your definition of branding? You have a brand strategy, business strategy, communication strategy, marketing strategy, sales strategy, brand communication strategy, and oh my gosh, it's sometimes quite difficult. And I wonder if you can, in a simple way, explain what is brand strategy and what brand strategy should consist of, and maybe, if it's not that difficult, because I know that even among marketers, there's a lot of kind of academical discussion. What is the difference between this and this?
Oh, yes.
Because there's huge amount of theories and a lot of books about it. It's I've heard this from David Breyer, that it's even impossible today to read all the books about marketing and branding, because even if you read one book a day, you don't have enough time to read all of them.
I agree with you.
Sometimes I try to find a way to explain some definitions in a simple way. So maybe let's start with brand strategy.
Yeah, no, great question.
We've all heard about it, but
you've all heard about it. Yes. The simplest definition of it is this. So don't think about all the things you've read. You've read all kinds of things about all the different types of strategy. In the end, what is strategy, right? Strategy is just a series of decisions that you make. What are we going to do? What are we not going to do? Super simple. It's just decisions that you make. And when you think about brand strategy, for me, that's really the face of business strategy. So if your business strategy is sound, you have your business model, you know what are the objectives, what are the goals, how are you going to get there, what are you going to build? As soon as you think about, all right, how are people going to connect with this entity, whether it's a company, a product, or service, that's when you get into brand strategy. That is it. And you make a set of decisions. How would people interact with it? How would people have a feeling and a perception and experience about it? That's it. It's super simple. Everything else you can expand or contract. What needs to be in there? It depends on your needs. What do you need? And that's about it.
Okay. And the document should be simple as well, because you have to explain this in a very simple and clear way.
You do.
So your interior customers, I mean your employees, understands why we're coming here every day.
That's
where
right.
we are going.
What are we doing? Where are we going?
Change.
That's right. And that's why when I talk about when I talk about all these statements that companies have, oh, is this a purpose statement? Is this a vision statement? Just have one statement. I don't care what you call it. Just have one thing that people understand. Why are we here? What are we supposed to do? So that anything that you're doing across the company, you can point back and say, oh, yeah, we're doing this. It aligns. We're good.
Mhm.
You don't have to flip through a 200-page brand style guide to figure out what you need to do or how you're behaving.
And no one understands it. And so,
Yeah, no one understands it. No.
can you give an example of a brand we can call healthy, or a healthy brand?
Yeah. I would say if you think about a healthy brand, I can only talk about the ones where sort of I have experience with, right? So when you think about the healthy brand of, let's say, that company that we rebranded years ago, at the point in time when we worked with them and we kind of left them, they had the foundational elements of their brand strategy, which is, they knew who they were, right? Again, their mission and what they're trying to do is they're called the guardians of the connected world. That's what they are. We are the guardians of the connected world. The connected world being the internet, everything that's connected, IoT, anything that's sending, packets of information, and they're guardians of that. That's it. That was it. Guardians of the connected world. They see themselves as guardians. They did whatever they could to make sure that it's up, it's on time, everything's working. A healthy brand means that there's foundational elements, right? There is a way for them to communicate that. There is a processes and systems for them to continue to evolve and change along with their customers, but they always had that essence in place. So, I'm not going to get into a 15-minute education about all these different elements that you need, but it's really very simple. You need to have a foundation of who you are, where you're going, and then a process, like we talked about earlier, to continue to evolve and change along with their customers. And, there's always all these brands that people talk about, right? There's the Patagonias and the Nikes and all these, companies. Sure. I mean, they're all out there. I mean, if you look for it, you will find them, right? But I think what's important is for your own company, for the clients that you're working with or working for, find out and figure out if they're healthy, if there are things that need to be done to shift them into a place of health.
Mm-hmm. You used to work, or you work with medtech companies or healthcare companies. I wonder what is the difference between building or managing a healthcare brand and just a brand, for example, a shoe brand. So what is the difference?
Yeah, the principles are the same, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
The nuances are different. So because it's highly regulated, because a lot of the times the science is very complicated.
Mm-hmm.
When you have a non-healthcare professional, a brand professional working in that space, sometimes it can get difficult in that they do not understand the nuances of how the brand needs to come alive. It's also healthcare. Especially where I'm at in the United States, it's so complex. It's the only industry where the people that pay for it, right? Which are the payers, the insurance companies, they don't actually use it. The people that use it, these are the physicians, right? They don't actually pay for it. And the people that get it, which are the patients, don't actually want to have it. Because in the end, they don't, right? After a while, they don't want this thing. They don't want it because once they're healthy, they're done. So it's a very complex industries with multiple stakeholders and audiences, and then the science is sometimes very complicated. So what ends up happening is, Lukash, is when like I said, when non-healthcare brand folks work on healthcare brands, they tend to be very superficial. They leave out the complex science component of it. They fail to align that. They fail to bring that into the story because it's complex. They don't understand it. And then you end up with campaigns will end up with these statements that are very broad and doesn't mean anything in the healthcare world. So things like, oh, we are transforming patients' lives. Okay. We are disrupting the healthcare industry or reimagining diagnostics. All right. So it becomes very bland. So that's one of the key differences.
Do you only work for health brand companies? Is it your positioning or your differentiator that you are an expert for health brand companies?
Yep. I would say 99% of my work is on healthcare. Yes.
Okay, so there's 1% for fun.
I get to play with other brands. That's not in healthcare. It's always great to kind of tap into other industries and see what's going on and learn from that.
Okay, wonderful. It's always good to change sometimes.
Yes.
So maybe this 1% is good to stay more creative or to find a different perspective.
Yeah, well, what's interesting in healthcare too, Lukasz, is that there is such a gravity pull for all these other industries to come in. So when you think about players like Amazon, players like the tech players coming in, Apple, for example, consumer products, there has never been that many healthcare companies on display at CES in Las Vegas, right? The Consumer Electronics Show. So there's a lot of energy and a lot of sub verticals within healthcare. They're super interesting. I've worked across all of them from consumer health to digital health, to medtech and pharma and biotech, what we talked about. So it is rich in there. But you're right. The 1% I get to play in things like apparel or like, high fashion or mountaineering, for example. So that's fun.
Okay. Is there a space for jokes and fun in health brand companies?
For what?
Or for, I don't know, when I think about communication of health brand companies, I cannot imagine even any brand. Nothing comes to my mind now, but I wonder if it's so serious and so complex, if there is a space for jokes and fun
jokes,
and something emotional in communication.
Yeah. So so I think you have to look at. It's interesting you say that. You have to look at two different things. One is the severity of what you're trying to tackle. That's one, right? The other one is the journey of where your patients and people are. So within that, you are able to find areas where you can lean into humor, you can lean into fun, but you're right. You have to be cautious because in the end, these are people's lives. I remember a while back ago, there was a campaign, not for me, that I saw that was about comedians explaining a type of disease to help people understand it more. Because it is, when you look at what's out there, education can be very stale. It can be very, very serious, but sometimes it doesn't need to be. So you can bring in that level of humor and fun for people to understand what's going on, right? But it can't happen all the time. You can't be like talking to a cancer patient on a deathbed and then spring out some humor about cancer. You shouldn't do that. So that's something obviously you should be careful.
All right, Howie. I have no more questions, but there's if you can say where listeners can follow you, because I know you, because I read what you post on LinkedIn or read what you publish on your website. But where can listeners follow you? If you can say how to find you.
Yeah, there are two primary places. So definitely find me on LinkedIn. Lukasz, I'm there. I'm posting every day. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So find me there. The other one is just go to my website, howiechan.com. Pretty easy. You can see all the things that I'm up to, all the craziness that I'm putting together. But all in the world of brand, right? It's all about influencing human behavior, and that's what I'm super curious about and continue to learn.
And we can always also find you on YouTube because you also have.
I'm there too. Yeah, on podcast. So on podcast. So Healthy Brand is my podcast. Yeah, so find me there too.
Okay, Wonderful. Thank you, Howie, for sharing your knowledge with Polish entrepreneurs, marketers, and students as well. It was a pleasure to have you here. And actually, thank you for being a part of kind of my Polish branding revolution, because once Matt Davis told me this is I'm the part of the brand revolution, sharing the right knowledge, inviting experts from different countries to Poland. So thank you for your time and for this conversation.
You're very welcome. The pleasure is mine. Thank you so much. You are an ambassador for Brand for Poland. So fantastic work.
Okay, thank you so much, Howie.
Thank you.